the legal presumption of innocence is lost here because the way the police treated Hayden was that, they presumed he's guilty just because he's not wearing a mask instead of presuming he's innocent and then having the evidence to determine otherwise.
Under arrest.
Stop resisting.
What's the last point?
Stop.
You know you're assaulting me right now.
We can put it
What?
I'm being assaulted by 3 officers.
Alright.
No, let's.
I was drinking a coffee.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to drink a coffee.
What's
I'm
your
being
name?
assaulted by 3 officers.
What's your name?
What's your name, bro?
My name's Hayden Williams.
G'day guys, thanks for actually taking the time to join us here. I think I'll start with you, Hayden. Firstly, congratulations, but before we get to that, for the viewers out there that don't remember your story, what actually happened?
Yeah, so basically I was going to buy a coffee during a lockdown in Alice Springs, Central Australia. And as I was drinking my coffee, I was approached by 3 police officers. They basically asked me to put a mask on. I told them I was exempt.
So you are committing an offence.
I have not committed an
You have.
offence.
I need
No,
you to
not.
wear a mask. Okay.
I'm drinking a coffee. I do
must
not
be on
have to wear a
public place,
mask
okay?
while I'm drinking a
Okay,
coffee.
listen.
They basically ended up arresting me, taking me to the watch house, and giving me a $5,000 fine, which I was pretty upset about. And after that, I reached out to you, Abby, and seeked help because I was working out in remote Australia at the time. I needed help to approach and navigate that situation.
If it serves my memory correctly, at the time there hadn't even been one COVID case in Alice Springs from the beginning of the pandemic. Is that right? That's
Correct.
right, yes.
Yeah.
And so, Manny, I remember when we took on Hayden's case, I thought this was open shut. It was a crazy $5,000 fine for not wearing a mask while you were drinking coffee with an exemption. But it wasn't actually that clear cut, as common sense as that sounds. Tell us the legal, what happened? How did we fight this?
Yeah, as you said, we also thought this was a pretty much an open shut case. In fact, Hayden had already informed the police at the time of his arrest that he's exempt. So he'd been cooperative. He'd actually told them the truth. Subsequently, we made legal representations to police about Hayden's exemption, and we attached the necessary evidence. They subsequently rejected those representations simply because the materials were provided after the date, if you like. That is, the date of the exemption was after the arrest. So their position was because the exemption had been written in a letter after the date of arrest, it doesn't work retroactively. But in reality, when people have a condition or when people have an exemption, that exemption exists. Doesn't matter whether it's certified or not, that exemption exists. Your condition, your exemption doesn't come into being when you get a certification. It always exists. So in any event, the matter proceeded to trial. We prepared the evidence for it. We were lucky enough because of the border restrictions and everything else that was in place. I personally wasn't able to travel to Northern Territory to attend the matter. We were lucky and privileged to brief Mr. John Elfrink. Mr. Elfrink was the ex-Attorney General of Northern Territory, a very seasoned and experienced prosecutor and lawyer. We're very grateful for that. And of course, it all comes down to the viewers and their generous donation that made this happen. Mr. Elfrink and the team, we put together a series of subpoenas.
I remember when we first took on this case, I thought it was crazy, the idea that Hayden was even fined when he was drinking a coffee, because in every other state, drinking a coffee in itself was an act that exempted you from wearing the mask. But in that jurisdiction, I remember when you looked it up, you go, wait, hold on a second. There, the rule is you have to sit down and drink your coffee.
Yep.
So that was not
Correct.
what saved Hayden. It was the fact that he wasn't lying about his exemption, and once subpoenaed, we were able to prove it. Now, Manny, obviously, the fine was $5,000. It's a huge fine for anyone. Hayden, could you afford $5,000 at the time? Certainly not. I couldn't afford a $5,000 fine, so I'm assuming most people in Australia, the majority of us, couldn't. Fighting this fine actually ended up, especially briefing such a top barrister, and that it probably cost us 3 or 4 times the fine itself. If the people out there were willing to just pay the fine for you at the $5,000 or crowdfund like we did to fight it off and not give the state a cent, do you think even though it cost 3 or 4 times as much, it was still worth it?
It helped me so much to know that people have my back, and that's the reason I came to you as well, is because I just thought it was so ridiculous that would even happen. And, my business has been crippled from COVID as well over the last 2 years. It's like, how can I pay this for such a small, petty, what seems like such a petty incident? I think it's a little win, for me, and it's a little win for the people.
I certainly agree with that. I don't think, I think the state deserves, it costs them a lot of money to fight it as well, and that they need to know that they don't have this, unlimited broad power in the name of health to be able to pick on the little guy and just issue $5,000 tickets for nothing, wrongly, unlawfully. And I want to thank you, Manny, firstly for taking on this fight, for briefing such a great barrister who managed to take care of it for us, and for all the work you put into it. And Hayden, is there anything, I want to thank you for standing up and being willing to fight this. This could have dragged out a lot longer. Thankfully, it was withdrawn at that point. Is there something you want to tell the viewers who are supporting our Fight the Fines case in your matter and continuing to help us with Fight the Fines at fightthefines.com.au?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone for standing up, for reaching out, for supporting Avi, Rebel News, and everyone that's, put in this position that is being bullied and feeling the overreach and overstep of the state in the current at the current time. So yeah, big thanks to everyone.
Yeah. And look, with the help of people, we're going to fight for as many more Haydens as we can. Hopefully we have many more victories. We've had a number. In fact, Manny sitting there with a big smile on his face. He has a number of victories under his belt already. He's become a champion of the Fight the Fines campaign that we have. We now have a few good lawyers on board, so I'm really grateful that this one turned out well. It was a shocking story, and I think the most shocking part from this side of it was that it wasn't as clear-cut as it seemed when looking on the face of it, because the laws were so ludicrous. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend, and hopefully this has lifted a little burden off your shoulders there, Hayden.
Thank you, Avi. Certainly has. Thanks, Manny.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
If you're as happy as I am about this outcome, make sure to like this report, and why not leave a lovely message for Hayden in the comments below. But most importantly, share it to inspire others in a similar position to fight back. We are still battling dozens of cases across the country, so if you're able and you're willing, please give what you can at fightthefines.com.au. This win was only possible because of your generosity, and we'll keep fighting for as many as we can afford. Unfortunately, we can't fight for everyone, but with your continued help at fightthefines.com.au, we'll have many more great outcomes for decent Aussies just like Hayden.